This is the new 2026 Cadillac Vistiq, which is Cadillac's latest luxury fully electric SUV with an $80,000 starting price, 3-row seating, and a lot of luxury features and materials like an Escalade, but less Escalade. Today, I'm going to review the new Cadillac Vistiq and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Cadillac Vistiq, and that's V-I-S-T-I-Q, because all of Cadillac's electric vehicles are named ending in IQ. It's like their thing. There was the Lyric, there was the Optic, there was the Celestiq, there's the Vistiq, and then there's the electric Escalade, which is called the Escalade IQ, because they didn't want to mess up the Escalade name that people know and love, so they just put IQ there hanging off the end. Escaladic. Maybe. Anyway, the Vistiq is a pretty compelling SUV. Like I said, full electric, 3-row seating, and prices start around $80,000. Sizing is pretty similar to a BMW X7 or Mercedes-Benz GLS, or the full-size luxury 3-row world. It's a little bit longer, 6 inches longer than an Audi Q7. Power is strong, 615 horses, which means 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Pretty good for a big luxury SUV, and all-wheel drive is standard. Now, the closest rivals to the Vistiq, other EVs, are the Volvo EX90, the Rivian R1S, and the Lucid Gravity, which all start right around the same price point, around 80 grand. You also have the Tesla Model X, although that's become a little more expensive than those rivals. As for range, this comes in right around 300 miles of range between charges. As for quirks, there are quite a few. We've already discussed the name, but how about this badge on the back that says 900E4? Is that the electric range, 900 miles? No, this has about 300 miles of fully electric range. Instead, 900 stands for the torque level in Newton meters, which nobody here in the States uses to measure torque, but that's what 900 means. And then E, of course, is electric, and 4 is all-wheel drive. You have to explain the badge on the back, and you probably shouldn't be putting the badge on the back. But other interesting quirks in back. For one, you walk up to the car and unlock the door, and you get this great sequence with the lights. The tail lights do this whole big dance, this welcome sequence to acknowledge that they see you and that they're ready for you to climb inside. And you get the very same thing up front. A big welcome sequence with the lights really kind of does this whole thing. The lights light up in all these ways. Sort of a light show every time you walk up to your Vistiq. And in front, that light show even includes some unusual places, like this lighting on the grille, which almost looks like trim, but when it lights up, you discover that it is indeed actually lighting. And there's even a light on the back side of the infotainment system on the dashboard inside the car. It's a Cadillac logo, and it points out whenever you walk up to the car at night, I guess to illuminate even from the inside that you're walking up to a Cadillac, and it does this when you unlock the doors. And there's more interesting lighting touches. How about the turn signal in this car, which is massive? This has to be one of the largest turn signals in the industry. It's this lower vertical piece, the upper vertical piece, and this horizontal sweeping piece below the rear glass. It all turns on every time you put on your turn signal, so there is absolutely no doubt that you're turning. It looks like one of those construction signs telling you to merge on the side of the road. Also interesting back here is access to the tailgate. There's not some rubber popper button above the license plate like in so many cars. Instead, you have the cab Cadillac logo. You push that and that pops open the tailgate. Press it, it opens up automatically, and then you get in back, which is actually kind of a clever way to gain access to your tailgate. Also clever in terms of opening stuff, the door handles. You can see right now they are flush against the body of the car, but when the doors are unlocked, they pop out and then you can pull on them and open up the door and get inside. And they even have little horizontal light pipes in them, so when you unlock the doors and it's night, there's sort of a flash of light in the door handle, which I don't think makes it any easier to get in, but it certainly adds to the coolness and the lighting effects of this car. Also a little quirky on the outside, these lines on the side. These kind of weird horizontal lines. This is purely for style, and it is apparently a hallmark of the electric Cadillac SUVs. You also have it on the Lyriq, as you can see here, and you have it on the Optic. But while in those cars, the lines are sort of on a panel in back, here it's just mounted on the rear glass, like your normal rear glass, but the lines are added so that everyone knows it's a Cadillac because that's like their electric car signature. A little bit strange. But while that is strange, I do have to say the general overall look of this car I think is fantastic. I love how the Vistiq looks. I think it is a very nice, very sharp, very modern, not overdone, but elegant, really attractive SUV. I think it's a nice overall design, and I think Cadillac did a great job styling this car. The same was true of their midsize gas crossover before this, the XT6. Also attractive, not the best car. This carries through that nice design language, still attractive, and a much improved vehicle over the XT6. And it's just as attractive on the inside as it is outside. $80,000 price point, you gotta have a nice interior, and this delivers. You can see a very high quality interior with nice materials and a good design everywhere you look. Feels modern, feels fresh, feels attractive. I really like a lot of the stuff in this interior, the general layout, the materials, it does look nice. I also love the seats. You can see this perforated leather with kind of this interesting trim, makes it attractive, very appealing seat in a very appealing interior. With that said, I do love this flat wood trim on the door panel you can see here, and I wish they had carried that over to other places in the dashboard and center console area. The flat wood looks really nice. Instead, they went with this brushed metal on the dashboard. Also looks good, and the same materials in the center console. It's attractive here too. I would prefer the flat wood, but nice to see a really attractive interior coming out of Cadillac. As for interesting quirks in here, there certainly are a few. Let's begin with storage. This central storage compartment, you can open it up and store stuff in it, pretty standard. You also have this little storage pocket next to the seats up front, which is nice. Then below that, there's this storage compartment. This is actually not just storage, but also a wireless phone charging pad with a couple of USB-C ports on it as well, but it's like another level of place where you can put stuff. And then below that, you have yet another level of storage with these lines for trim. So you can see there's like 4 different storage areas here in the center console. Nice and practical, but also kind of interesting to see that much. Now, as for your traditional storage, the glove box, that's an interesting quirk too, because you can see there is no glove box handle. Instead, to open the glove box, you have to tap this icon in the infotainment screen, press that, and the glove box falls open. No traditional handle given in this car. Another interesting quirk is the climate vent situation. This car has massive climate vents. They're very short in height, but they are very wide. You can see on the passenger side takes up the entire side of the dashboard, but the strangest one of all is here in the center. This is just one giant wide climate vent. It's got to be about a foot wide, the biggest I've ever seen for sure, and it's controlled with this switch over on the side, this massive climate vent in the middle. A lot of automakers are doing everything they can to remove the appearance of climate vents in the interior, kind of hide them. Not so in this car. They're just getting bigger. And another interesting quirk in here, back to the seats, you go up to the headrest and you can see there is a speaker built into the headrest with speakers on either sides of where your head would be in the middle. That's actually becoming more common. Automakers are adding more and more speakers to their interiors and they're putting them in headrests, but it's nice to see it here, a nice luxury touch that fits in at this price point and this vehicle segment. But anyway, next up, let's talk tech in this car. You have this giant curved screen in the center, as you can see, that goes across sort of the entire driver's side and then into the middle of the interior. The middle of the interior part is the infotainment system, meant to be shared up front, front, and it's great. Now, General Motors doesn't offer Apple CarPlay in its vehicles, but honestly, I think this does okay without it. You have a fantastic infotainment system in here that's really well set up, very responsive to the touch, easy to move around, high resolution. It all works tremendously well, and it includes some familiar apps like Google Maps, which is your map system in this car, which is nice to have. Google Assistant is in here also, and you have Spotify and a few other apps that you're probably familiar with, kind of diminishing the need for something like Apple CarPlay. It's a really good, really well done infotainment system. And there's a few things I especially like. For instance, easy access to the cameras. You can see this little camera icon in the bottom. You tap it, you go right to the cameras. Nice to have that there, especially in a bigger vehicle. You're trying to park in a tight space. Nice to see the cameras are right there. I also love the Conversation Enhance feature, which essentially amplifies the voice of the front seat passengers throughout the vehicle. So if you're trying to tell your kids in the back to stop doing something, whatever, you don't have to turn around and scream. Conversation Enhance will use the stereo speakers and the Bluetooth microphone to enhance your conversation so everybody can hear. Kind of cool. Other interesting things about the infotainment system. For one, there are additional controls in the center. So even though this is a touchscreen, you have this Cadillac logo dial that you can move around, along with a few other controls that are like quick shortcuts to take you to music, phone, map, or home. You also have a volume knob there, as you can see. So it's nice to have kind of that redundancy if for whatever reason you prefer not to use the infotainment screen as a touchscreen. Now, also worth pointing out down here, you can see there is a separate screen for climate controls. You do not get physical buttons in this car, but you are spared from having the climate controls be buried in a menu. Instead, they're all right here, easy to touch, easy to access on this screen, and it works reasonably well. And speaking of screens, another one worth talking about here is the gauge cluster screen, which of course is directly ahead of the steering wheel. This is a great screen. Again, big, high resolution, shows a lot of good information, and it is quite configurable using this odd small touchscreen to the left of the steering wheel. This little touchscreen lets you configure exactly what you want to see on the gauge screen, including you can go full screen map if you want, which I always love to have as an option. It's nice to see all of these different gauge configurability displays here in this odd touchscreen, which also controls your headlights. There's no traditional dial or switch for the lights. You're controlled on the left side of the screen with this tiny touchscreen. And speaking of screens, still one more to discuss in here. That would be the rear view mirror, which is not a traditional mirror, but instead a camera screen. So you can have it as a mirror if you want, but you flip this switch and it becomes a camera, which I think is a huge safety enhancement. You don't have to try to look in your mirror through whatever's behind you, your tinted windows, your small rear window. You just have it as a camera. It's on the outside of the car and you can see whatever's going on back there with no obstruction. A great safety feature. Another great safety feature in this car, by the way, is Super Cruise, which is Cadillac's driving assist technology. This is standard on all Vistiq models right now. It basically monitors your eyes while you're driving to make sure you are, and then if you're on a mapped road, the system basically fully takes over and you can be hands-free for hours at a time in a lot of situations. It's a pretty impressive system and it works quite well, and it's nice to see it integrated into the Vistiq. And speaking of steering wheel controls, where you control your Super Cruise, there is also a button here that says V, which of course is Cadillac's high performance brand. You press that and you go into V mode, which I guess is sort of a sport mode. Makes you feel more powerful and sporty if you want some real drag strip starts in your 3-row luxury family SUV. Finally, I will say, even though I'm very positive about this interior, the materials, the quality, I don't like, it's a weird gripe, but I really don't like the feel of the turn signal stock. It just feels floppy and cheap, like old General Motors turn signal stocks, and it really doesn't give a great feel of quality flopping around. It's clearly plastic, meant to look like metal. It just doesn't feel nice, something you interact with all the time with your hands, and it doesn't give the air of quality that this car deserves and that the rest of this interior has. And next up, we move on to the back seat, the second row in this car, which is a great place to be. Seriously, I have the front seat position where I would sit as a tall adult, and sitting back here, I have good knee room, headroom, hip room, leg room. I have it all, which is pretty impressive considering it's not a huge vehicle and there is still a third row, which typically makes second row space suffer a little bit. Not the case here. You also don't have a central hump like you do in so many cars for the driveline. That makes it easier to move around here, to get into the third row, whatever. That's also a nice touch. And the backseat of this car is loaded with good stuff. You have this full screen climate panel back here where you can adjust the climate control, temperature, fan speed, all to your convenience. And there are multiple climate vents, not just these ones in the center, but you have extra climate vents over on the side to really make sure rear seat passengers have their own climate zone, completely control their own climate. You also have heated rear seats, which you can access here. Nice touch and adds to the comfort and convenience. Other benefits in the back, you can see here 2 USB-C ports for charging devices for rear passengers. Nice to have. And behind this little door, there is a household power outlet, which I love to see. I love any car with a household outlet, but that's especially true if it's in the interior. So you can plug in like a computer while you're driving along and charge larger devices. That is great to see in this car, and I love it. Also worth pointing out here in the center console, there is a little door you can open with a latch. You pull that open and there's cup holders there, which is nice. Good to have those, of course, for second row passengers. And the door panel at the bottom is sort of molded where you can add another cup, another drink, maybe a water bottle down there. So there's good cup holdering for your rear passengers. Now, with all that said, all that good stuff aside, there is one gripe I have back here, and that is no sunshades in the second row windows. At this price point, 80,000 plus, you gotta have standard rear seat sunshades. They don't have it here, a bit of a miss. But anyway, next we move on to the third row, where access is kind of bizarre, actually. Getting access is great. The seat folds forward, slides forward, and there's a lot of space to walk right into the third row pretty easy. But the weird thing is the button to give you that access is tiny and mounted really low. So it's small and you have to reach down to get it. But then you press that and then the seat does its thing. I don't know why it's not mounted on the shoulder, on the backrest of the seat like in every other car, but that is the situation here. Now, when you get into the third row, you will discover it's actually surprisingly roomy back here. Considering the length of this vehicle, you got a decent sized third row, which is surprising. And you have some nice amenities like individual cup holders on either side of the third row and climate vents on either side of the third row. Obviously, no separate climate zone back here, but nice to have vents in the third row. You also get your own personal sunroof, which is really cool. It doesn't open, there's no sunshade, but you have a third row specific sunroof. Doesn't make the third row feel like quite such a penalty box like in so many other cars. And you can look to the side and see the lines. Ah, yes, the Cadillac electric car lines. There they are. Another nice third row feature is power ports. You can see next to the climate vents, you have a little USB-C port on both sides for both third row passengers for charging their devices, which obviously adds even more convenience back there. And one last nice feature in the third row back here, since it is a power folding third row seat, you can fold it from here, sort of directly behind the second row. And that means if you're trying to load in a kid and you realize only when they're getting in that the seat was folded down for some reason, you don't have to go all the way around to the back to pop it back up. You can do it from right here. That really adds to the convenience, and it's a nice touch to have that little button. Just a little detail that helps you out. And finally, we move on to the cargo area. You open it up again with that Cadillac logo. Push that, it pops open, the tailgate, power operated. You can see there's a pretty decent amount of space behind the third row. It's not huge because this isn't a huge vehicle, but you have good space back here, even despite decent interior space for all rows of seats. And there's extra space under the floor, quite a bit of it, in fact. If you want to put more stuff back here, you got extra space where you can do it. It's pretty good packaging in back. And one nice feature back here is that you can drop the second and third row seats from the cargo area. So the second row seats, you can only drop them. You push this button here, they fall down. You cannot power automatically put them back up. To get them back up, you got to go around to the individual seats, but still nice to be able to drop them. The third row, you can raise or lower them. They are fully power operated, which means if you have a larger item back here, you want to put them down, no problem. Very easy to do and nice feature. Now, a couple of drawbacks in terms of the cargo area. Number one, you do have a power port back here, but it is a 12 volt, a cigarette lighter style plug. You don't have household or USB-C. It's nice to have the port, would be better if it was a little more usable. Another thing I don't love about this car is that there's no button to close the tailgate and lock the doors. You press it and you just walk away and they lock. You only have to close the tailgate button. Now that's partially because this car relies heavily on proximity proximity, meaning it automatically locks when you get a certain distance away. But I think that most people like to press a button and really feel like it's locked. Your other cargo drawback is that there is no cargo storage in the front compartment. You don't have an engine. This is an electric car, but you open it up, you can see no cargo storage under here. It's all mechanical stuff. Now, the interesting thing is there looks like there's actually some room for cargo storage. Not a huge thing, but they could have probably gotten it in here, but they chose not to. Most automakers tell me that their research shows consumers don't actually use their front trunk cargo storage, but it's nice to have it. A lot of rivals to this car do have it, but you don't get it in the Vistiq. Anyway, all of the quirks and features aside, now it's time to get out of the road and see how the Vistiq drives. All right, driving the Vistiq, the latest IQ electric Cadillac. I've now driven all of the electric Cadillac IQ models except for the Celestiq. And I have to say, the Vistiq is my favorite in a lot of ways. I like how it looks. I like all the tech, all the stuff I showed you before. I think the pricing is reasonable compared to rivals, but also the driving experience is just really excellent, honestly. It's got a lot of power. There's no like base trim that has a little power and then you got to spend more to get big power. This thing has big power at all versions, which you'd expect kind of for the price point. Feels fast basically anywhere. You're merging, you're passing. This has a lot of passing power. I love how it looks. I love the styling. I think it's a really attractively designed car. Sharp styling, looks modern, looks nice. And it's also comfortable. I don't think this is quite on the level of BMW X7 or Mercedes-Benz GLS comfort level. Those cars just ride a little better, a little smoother. They feel just a little bit more luxurious. However, this is pretty close, and it's certainly on Audi Q7 level, if not even better than that, and obviously with a lot more power and sharper styling. I think this really feels like the luxury SUV that Cadillac intended. And although obviously the Escalade IQ is the flagship of the Cadillac luxury models, Cadillac electric SUV model range, this is the one, in theory, this is gonna be a much more popular vehicle. 3-row, relatively reasonably priced against rivals. This is kind of the meat and potatoes, everyman, more common vehicle. And it really drives like that. It feels like that. Like it's a really well done, very credible effort compared to its rivals. From a seating position standpoint, you're up high. You feel like you're in an SUV, which obviously you are. And I say that though because some crossovers you feel lower than you might want. Not the case here. Feels high, feels tall, feels like you're driving, an SUV with a higher driving position, which is what people like. Same deal with visibility. Despite the big size, you get good visibility in all directions. The rear view mirrors on the sides are a little small, which is kind of odd. It seems like they could stand to be a little bit bigger, but generally speaking, it's just fine. The driving is easy. An accelerator, one pedal driving basically entirely. Obviously, you can kind of change that, so you don't have to be fully one pedal. But if you are one pedal, it feels totally fine. I mean, there's just from a driving perspective, this car is not like a knockout. It's not like super sporty and amazing and crazy. But that's not what any of these SUVs are. They're just intended to give you sort of a comfortable ride from one place to another. That's practical and that's luxurious and that's nice and that's quiet, and this does a great job of that. And by the way, I didn't mention quietness earlier, but it really does do a good job of drowning out, keeping out noise from outside, keeping out tire noise from the car itself. It's not always a guarantee with electric cars since you don't have a powertrain, that sort of familiar sound to kind of mask some exterior sounds, but this car does a great job of feeling quiet at basically all situations. I just from a driving perspective, take out brand, you take out whether the EVs are popular right now, whatever, but from a driving perspective, sitting in this car, driving it, I think this car is absolutely on par with anything that rivals are making. GLS, X7, Q7, I would cross shop this at the same level and feel good about making this decision if I chose it because I wanted an EV or because I wanted, certain features, whatever. Like, I think that there is a lot of really good stuff about this car. And I like the Lyriq and I like the Optic, and the Escalade IQ is sort of peerless for what it is, but this is definitely the most competitive of the Cadillac SUVs and just a very competent, excellent overall product. Just done really well. And so that's the new 2026 Cadillac Vistiq. There's a lot to like here with good tech, excellent luxury features, a good driving experience, great performance, 3-row seating, sharp styling. This is a good electric SUV. And while the market seems to be shifting away from EVs, this is a great option if you're searching for a great option. Anyway, now it's time to give the Vistiq a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 61 out of 100, which puts the Vistiq in a pretty good spot against rivals, but not quite where Cadillac wants to be. I still think the new Volvo EX90 is more appealing with a nicer interior and a better driving experience, while the Kia EV9 and the Hyundai Ioniq 9 get the exact same score in daily usability for a lot less money. The Vistiq is appealing, but I think mainly because most rivals aren't in this space yet. Once we see credible three-row luxury EV competition from Audi, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Lexus, I think the Vistiq becomes an also-ran. For now, though, it's worth a look, offering a luxury car experience for less money than an EX90, but providing a three-row EV experience with more luxury than a Kia EV9.